Welcome to a new episode of Advancing Consciousness series with Franco Di Nicola. This is a place where people can come to gain further insight and clarity as to what is going on and how we can shift things on a personal and global level, while also accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness. We bring this series to you free of charge so that many are able to access this information. However, if you resonate with what Franco shares and you would like to support his work to get more content out, contributions are welcomed and greatly appreciated. A link is in the description and will be provided in the chat if you feel guided to do so. Also, we have many previous workshops, such as the most recent, Bringing Out the New You to Play in the New World, along with our membership program, Let's Talk About You, where like-minded people come together bi-weekly to talk about the topics requiring deeper understanding and clarity. All of these are available on Teachable, and we encourage you to check them out as they are great resources at very affordable prices to assist in better understanding this human experience. The Teachable link will also be provided in the chat and is also in the description. And lastly, don't forget to share. As more of us come together who are creating shifts in themselves, the more effective it will be to shift things globally. Thank you for joining us and being part of the change. Enjoy today's broadcast.
So welcome everybody. We get together again, we get to play again, we get to really get even much more advance forward in a huge way as we continue to play and open up what we've kept so close to have our experience up to this point in time. So we had quite an episode, 18, with 6 parts. We covered some so-called taboos. We went into looking at some of the programs and all the stuff that was going on and really take a closer look of it and get a deeper understanding. And we will continue to grow on that in the sense of looking at certain compartments and so forth with a lot more clarity and expansiveness. Now, I know I had some feedback from certain people that a lot of what was shared was really, really intense for them in the sense of really stimulating stuff. Now, there's a lot of the crossing, what do they call it, connecting the dots and so forth that may have happened, but others have said, okay, you know, there was so much shared that I need integration time because it's really challenging. A lot of the stuff that I've adhered myself to understand and experience in my journey, and in a way I feel that what I have created as a structure in my world and thought that that was the way of life is starting to crumble. But you know, the other part of the feedback I was getting is that in many ways from each and everybody, that already started the process even before we got involved to play with these episodes coming in. So all we're doing is fast-tracking, stimulating, and further what already was coming through you at this point in time. So yes, if it takes a little longer to go through it, that's fine. You give yourself time to integrate because, you know, it does change you in a very powerful way. It changes your patterns and your thought. It does actually destabilize a lot of the things that you've experienced as a reality. It also activates certain energies within your body, within your human entity. It excites your soul because it's putting you on a certain path. But this is all part and parcel of what you are doing with yourself. All, you know, what we're sharing here is to just kind of assess. So welcome to another episode of Advancing Consciousness series. We're in episode 19, and in this episode we're going to look at some of the questions that came in that we did not address. Now, some of them we may have already addressed to some degree, but we were going to take it to the next level of just giving a little bit more clarity about it. Based on the numbers of questions that we've accumulated in during the episodes, there's quite a few pages. How many were there, you were saying? There were like 20 pages, and there's a numerous amount of questions on each page. So obviously it's going to take a few episodes to be able to cover some of the questions. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to record the times of where these episodes lie up. So when the questions are asked, we're going to list it on Facebook on the description. Right now, the description it provides what it provides, and also on YouTube and Vimeo. But at the same time, what we're going to do is that we're going to put the times where to find particular answers, or the question with the answers, so that you can refer to it a lot quicker at certain points. Now, the fact that you're here live gives you the opportunity to go through, as we go through each of the questions. Now, the questions are not just specific in the sense of questions that address somebody individually, because a lot of the questions, even when they're asked on an individual basis, affect us in a very powerful way collectively. Now, the other thing is too, the answers will apply in one way or another exactly what you require when you need it as you're playing forward at this point. So even the way it's going to be responded, it's actually going to expand anything that may have not been possibly brought to the full perspective, so that you actually get a deeper understanding. And now, as you're hearing this and it's stimulating within yourself, it will just accentuate further changes within yourself. So here we are, we're May 7th. We had another burst of energy, very supportive this time. And we can feel it depending on how tuned you are to receiving these energies. A lot of us are open to a certain degree and then close it off a certain way. It does not mean that you're not being affected by it. It does not mean that in one way or another it's not stimulating and doing what it's there to do. And there's also these energies that are coming through, because we have several more just this month alone. Month is a pretty powerful month. The month of May is a pretty powerful month. I mean, every one piggybacks on the next, and it expands further. So, you know, when these waves come in, they're all there to service. All of them are there to create powerful shifts, because, you know, the thing that comes up right now for a lot of people, even when they're starting to have a deeper understanding, they're looking at the reflective world around them and say, hey, like, how is all of this going to change? How all of this, because there's so many people still in 2D, so many people in inverted 3D, including ourselves, are bouncing back and forth, very much in the inverted matrix kind of operating system, still very much driven and operated by the ego. And there are still certain role players that are in the higher positions, or, you know, projected higher positions at this point in time, that are playing very powerful roles that have, in one way or another, created more restrictions or whatever it is. How is all of that going to change? How is all of that going to be in a way where it matches with myself, you know, being you guys? The question that comes in is, how is it all going to come about? Well, the amazing part about all of this, it's not always about the action we take in the sense of a physical sense. Even though that is a requirement or part of it, it is not done by just that exclusively. It really starts with us, because you have to understand, we're all projecting from an energetic point what we believe is a way of life and so forth. It doesn't matter that we've taken it on from the programming of the inverted matrix and whatever else that's going on, the ego and so forth, and all the different operating systems that are played out. Still give power to all of that. We're still going to continue to stream it, and there's so many of us streaming that part of it. But at the same time, each time you stimulate a further consciousness within yourself, our streaming starts to change, and it starts to change also the collective streaming. Because right now, the ego part is wanting to hold everything as is. Our higher aspects and everything that's supporting that higher aspects of ourselves are way on alignment of creating change. So it doesn't matter if you're in 2D, inverted 3D, inverted matrix, and playing the huge polarity part of it. We have already a very powerful preference to move things forward, including the ones that are hybrids, that are in the very, what you call the Lucifer operating system, that has been utilizing all of the different programming and so forth that's playing out, are also, from a deep part of it, getting to a point, okay, we need to wrap this up. So what I'm saying is, as you're working with yourself, as you are playing with yourself, as you unravel from all this programming, so you're going through the deprogramming process, and you're really activating your true blueprint, your true nature, your true essence in your experience, that is already creating your own personal reality, extended reality, and it's influencing and assisting all the ones that are waiting for us, which is everyone, to redesign the whole global playground and everything else that's going on. So this is all part and parcel. Now, before we get going to the questions itself, I wanted to mention we have a global meditation coming up this Saturday, so that's 2 days from today. At around 2 p.m., I shouldn't say around, 2 p.m., we are going to do a global meditation focused on love and oneness. Very powerful, energetic operating system, which is the basic fundamental operating system of Source, your very essence, the fabric of all creation, the very essence of who you are in every level. The fundamental component of it is love and oneness. So we're going to be advancing our current dance of life through this meditation. So it is this Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. The more of us that join in, the more powerful it is. And if you can't join us live, you can also access the recordings, the video and audio, video recording actually, which will be posted right shortly after, or be available shortly after the streaming, because this will be live streamed the same way we're live streaming now, and it'll be streamed on the same platforms. It's not going to be on any different platform, on the same platforms, and you could access it. The more you repeat it, the more powerful it becomes within you, and the more powerful, because we're all coming together to stimulate that open oneness, love, essence, to awaken, to stimulate others. Now, we're not doing this to say, okay, we're in a hellhole or a bad state or anything of that nature. No, we're just stimulating it so that we are, in a way, reinforcing what we truly want from the very core of ourselves, and that is to advance and move forward with this dance of life. So that's coming up this Saturday. So share it far and wide with others, to let them know, so they have an option. They can join us or not. It's up to them. It is not the solution for anything that we're projecting here. No, it's just us coming together to unite our energies, our intentions, our very core source component of it, and create an exponentially powerful energetic field. Because the one we did last weekend was basically all around love and appreciation, and appreciating of our dance of life, and appreciating everything that's playing out is one of the key instruments too, but we also use love. Now we're bringing in the oneness. The oneness is a very powerful component of it, because you see no longer the separation, you don't longer see the fragmentation. The oneness is the oneness of ourselves, oneness with everything that exists, including every other facets of yourself that are here playing, and that oneness expands further and further and further. Even though we're in the field of that oneness, we are still supporting that in a very powerful way. Is there anything that you wanted to add around the meditation or anything of that nature?
No, I think you pretty much covered it, honey.
Okay, great. So we get to play some more. So I just wanted to let you know that was coming up. Now, so today we're going to play with a bunch of questions, and we're going to explain some of the details and anything that may require further expansion and clarification around the question. So my beautiful partner Kimberly will be asking the question, and she can also answer the questions too, or I might jump in and throw a couple of things in there. Go ahead.
Okay, so we have quite a few, as Franco had mentioned, and so we're going to just start and get to as far as we can get to. I think it's Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we're going to do another Q&A, possibly?
Yes, most likely next Tuesday.
This coming Tuesday, I guess
This,
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the coming Tuesday. Next week. we'll carry on because there's many questions to address, and we don't want to go hours and hours. Already people have saturation issues at this point, so I know you could stop and start at any different times along the way, but yes, we'll carry on Tuesday, and I will be flying solo on Tuesday. Now Kimberly will not be with me at that point because she's being somewhere else, but at the same time she's going to be monitoring some of the comments and things of that nature along the way. But the questions, I will have my own list of the questions we have already selected, so I will read them and I will answer them also at that time. But this time we have the pleasure of Kimberly to do the reading and narrating and all that fun stuff. Go ahead.
Okay, honey. Just making sure I'm on here. Okay, so the first question is, what can you suggest to people who are receiving lots of downloads and information that may be a bit overwhelming? How should they deal with it, or the intense energies we're being bombarded with? Because lots of people are getting lots of extra additional information downloaded to them, and how do they navigate with that, and what should they do to maybe integrate it?
Okay, so one of the things that comes up for people at this time, especially with the energies that are coming through, we have the downloads, like it was said there. We're feeling very intense stuff going on within ourselves. Our automatic default is whenever we're uncomfortable, and that's usually, and I'll just put this up here, it's really the ego that gives you the hard time, and the what we call the patterns within the operating system of the ego. Now, so the other thing that you're going to find is that whenever these energies are coming in, this additional information, consciousness, and so forth, it may create an unsettledness within ourselves because this part of it, and also the patterns that we've established, and a lot of times those patterns are established as memories in the body. There's certain patterns in our own mind, and then there's, of course, information that is stored in the subconscious that may be challenged at that point. So when you start to feel that, the tendency is going to want to resist it or understand it or feel overwhelmed. What I would suggest is whenever you're feeling that, you just acknowledge that it's coming through, and also acknowledge what you're feeling by it and so forth, and be present with it. Just go into the observer mode. What does that mean, observer mode? You're basically just going to be present with whatever's coming out, even the overwhelm, because once you're feeling that, and you actually stop, close your eyes and just focus on the breath at first, and then be open to, if it does create any panic, just breathe it out, breathe it in and out. That is just taking the layers off that is intense, and just be present with it, because the only reason that you are feeling it, the only reason that you're experiencing is because you are at a level from the physical, the human entity, the soul, and even the mind, minus the ego, is open for that. So you're going to allow that to come through. So whenever you're feeling the resistance, instead of going into the default resistance, and that will have a tendency to do so, just, okay, I feel this overwhelm. I'm just going to quiet it. Don't go into looking for comfort. Go into being observer. Just focus on the breath, and then look at or allow whatever you're feeling, even fear or anything else that comes up, just to be there. Because as you observe it, there's the part of you, the higher consciousness view, which is the innate of the body, the innate of the human entity, and the soul, that actually works along with you in the sense of bringing that integrational, I have to put the rest of it, I'm making it up, part to take place, because it is actually challenging a lot of the programs and energies and blocks and whatever else that may have been created within the body, and some of the patterns that we may have established. Also at that point, you actually get to be able to see the ego's reaction from doing that. So really take some time to quieten the mind, to go into that state where you're looking at it from an observer state, and also be okay with whatever you're feeling. Don't fight it. There'll be the tendency for that. So whenever you're feeling that fighting, just put your attention on the breath and just focus on the breath. And that will calm you, because at that point in time, you're basically quieting the mind's reaction, and you're allowing the other levels of consciousness to come through, which are supportive. You know, so many parts of you are supporting you. Like I said, your body, your human entity, your soul, and even your mind is supporting you. The ego is going to want to do whatever possible to kind of stop it. And of course, we have a lot of reference points, labels, and everything else that we may have in our subconscious mind of past experience and so forth that may be purging. So you're going to just let that be. Is there anything you wanted to add around that, or do you feel that?
I had suggested to, you know, if you're getting downloads and information, to journal
Yes.
about what you're getting, and you know, if you need to express it in some way through whatever way that works for you, whether it's artwork or dance or whatever. But it's also important to be in the moment and not get, you know, like you're whipping around in a frenzy. It's really important to be grounded and be in the moment, and so make sure that you're doing whatever you need to do to always bring yourself back into alignment with the moment and who you are, because it's so easy to get caught up in that whirlwind of whatever activities going on up there.
Exactly. So the thing is, the being in the moment is very powerful, because the thing is, a lot of times when we get the downloads, we have a tendency, the ego's tendency and method of using is to project something in the future, and it may create anxiety or create other things. So the journaling is very, very instrumental. So thank you for that, Kimberly, for sharing that, because by journaling it, you're actually writing out what you're getting, because if you may not be able to integrate all of it now at this moment, once you've gone through the process of getting more, you can look at it and say, okay, how can I apply this? How can this be part of my experience now? Even if you take a small portion of whatever is being shared, then you could plug in the rest of it. Because, I mean, from my own personal experience, you know, especially when the soul gives me so much at that point in time, and especially when I wasn't even in the position to be able to share it yet, because I say, okay, this is for you, but not for everybody yet. And that was some time ago. And it was like, okay. But, you know, we made notes, I wrote down things and so forth. And even though that it gave me an opportunity to really reconstruct within myself what was being presented, so that at a certain point it was able to be expressed and the way it's being expressed now, and it'll continue to expand. And that is with all of us. So writing it down is very powerful. That way it takes the pressure of trying to remember it and saying, oh, I got to take immediate action, rather than I'm going to write it down, I'm going to see what I can use now. But at the same time, the other thing that's bringing forth is old defaults and programs. Now, with the energies, we have to understand they do trigger to turn on dormant parts of ourselves. Some of it is to do with the DNAs, some of it is doing with the genetic encodements, the blueprints. But at the same time, while it's doing that, it's also going to be purging. Okay? It's coming up to be purged. And what the purging is, and that purging is from many, many levels, because it can be a purging from, you know, not only your archives of your experience, could be from your past lives, from your lineage, from whatever, but the purging is just basically letting go of all of that, or just, you know, getting done with that part of it. So you may have some of that coming out, and journaling that part of it is also very beneficial. So just really acknowledge it, thank it, because all of it serves. Send it love, because you have such a deep appreciation for what it existed. And then you have to understand, it doesn't matter how polarized it is, everything was created through love. I know that sounds weird. And the ego's going to say, what is that? What are you talking about? There's dark, light, good, bad, right, wrong, all of that stuff. But in essence, that's not true. Everything is created through love, and experience is an experience. So when you reflect that love, it actually goes into pure fabric, what we call field 0 point creation energies.
And I was just going to say, if it's information you're receiving that you feel compelled that you need to share,
Yes.
then share it whatever way you're comfortable with sharing. So whether you write a blog or do a little video or whatever, share it with someone who will listen to you. You know, if that's necessary as well, that can also be helpful.
Yeah. And when you do that, don't go in with, okay, I got this information, everybody's got to get it. No, you get the information, you share it as far as you need to share it, but don't expect anybody to change. Don't force anything on anybody. So if you have certain people that are not interested, it's okay. And they may be ready later, or they may never be. Doesn't matter. But at this point, you share it in any way through, of course, you journal it first, but later on you can share it with others, or even shortly after that. Because a lot of times when we receive something, you get excited about sharing it, or you get overwhelmed at first, and then you feel like, okay, I need to share this. So yeah, share it in any which way you feel guided to do so. Now, if there's any fear that comes up when you get to the idea of sharing, just acknowledge for where it's coming from. And just say, yeah, okay, thank you. I love you. I release you from your responsibility. I free you. And then go ahead and still share. Share whatever you need to share. No fixing anybody, no forcing it down anybody's throat. Just share it. Who's ever open to it is open to it. Even if they just listen and they're not open to take action with it or to make any changes within themselves, you've already planted the seed, and that is it. What gets challenging is when we have family members or certain loved ones in our lives that we somehow go into this savior mode, or we go into the fact that we need to change everybody, and that can be a really binding part that's really very good from that perspective.
So Madeline is asking, what about experiencing physical discomfort and physical pain? In regards to, I guess, the energies coming in.
Okay, so when the energies are coming in, sometimes you may have accentuated, intense, or what we call accentuated physical expressions and experiences that you may have in your body. So at times we may have certain energies locked in those areas that we somehow had certain experiences and then weren't prepared to deal with it, or prepared to really look at it and get what's best in there. We do lock it into the body at certain parts of the body. So when this is coming up, it's actually bringing it up to the surface. So what I would recommend is that when you're feeling those very powerful sensations within your body, just go into a quiet state, focus on the breath, and then put your attention to the area. And do not go in to try to fix it. Try not to negate it and say, okay, I got to turn it off. I got to, whatever, this is uncomfortable. Be present. Be present in the discomfort and allow yourself to feel the full sensation of what's there. And as you're doing that, you will notice a subtle change that will occur, because the resistance, the polarity starts to go, and it becomes more organic, or more what we can call natural, that sensation. And then you can tap into it and say, okay, what does this represent? What is the message that is being provided for me at this time from this sensation that I'm feeling? Now, at times you may have had something traumatic happen in your life, and you have an association that has been locked into there. So you may bring up an old memory of something that may have happened. So at that point, if a memory comes up, go look at the memory. Spend some time focusing on the memory. Of course, if you can jot it down, that'd even be better, and write it down. But go into what that led to, what state was happening at that time. Because you have to understand, there's no right, wrong, good, bad. There's no experience that you have created in any way, shape, or form from the moment you came here and from even previous lives that were bad. It was a label that was applied through the inverted matrix, through the inverted 3D and all that stuff. But so now you're going to look at it from the eyes that you have now. And when I say the eyes, the consciousness that you have now, the energies and awareness that you have now, you're not going to look at it and you're going to see at that point in time whatever you felt. So whenever you're going back to a past, and if there's pain attached to it or a label attached to it, just go into the observer state. So just focus on it, see it, and almost sense yourself stepping back, looking at that version of yourself, going through that and observing, okay, this is very interesting. What am I feeling there? What's going on there? How did I feel at that point in time? You may have felt disempowered. You may have felt a victim. You may have felt that in some way, somehow, that you were having something that was against your will and whatever, or that in some way that you determined that that was not what you preferred or anything of that nature. Just observe it. And when you're observing it, observe it from the eyes of perfection. See it, oh, that was a great experience, but I had a different label and an interpretation about the experience, but I'm going to see it in a loving way. I'm going to see it as a movie. I'm going to see it as myself participating in that movie and also having a very profound experience, polarized or otherwise. By looking at it from the observer, from that loving state, you see that that whole thing changes. And then you can ask yourself the question, how could I, what other choice do I have to look at this now? So for example, at that time you may have felt disempowered. So you may easily just say, oh, I am in an empowered, I choose now to be in an empowered state. What choice can I make? And at that point you could say, yeah, you know, I don't have to be here. I can walk away. I can do whatever. And that dissolves all of that. By clearing that part out, then you can go back to wherever you're having the sensational pain in your body, and you'll notice it may feel very differently. But at the same time, just staying present with it, and you could also see if there's any other stuff attached to it. So don't resist the pain and don't resist a lot of the stuff we're going through. Be present with it and then communicate with it, because what you're doing is you're communicating with different energies that may have been stored there, and also the innate consciousness of the body, because the body is the one that's reflecting that pain. So you can even ask your body, innate body, can you show me and direct me or let me understand what is the indicator here? What's my, what are you telling me? What is this pain telling me? What is this discomfort telling me? What am I, you know, whatever. And it may also redirect you to make changes in your life. It may also stimulate you awareness that you're on a path that no longer serves, but you're still hanging on to it, and it may need to require that. Or you may be inducing certain foods or substances or whatever it is that's still not matching anymore, and because of the changes that are occurring in the physicality, it's making itself very present. So these are some of the things you can do. Is there anything else you wanted to share around that, or did I feel that it makes sense?
No, it felt like
I
it
don't
made
know.
sense. Yeah. So I'll ask another question around changes in the body. So someone is asking if you can talk about crystals in our skin and changes in vision, as they are starting to notice changes in both.
Okay. I noticed the changes, like talk about the changes that's happening from the crystalline state?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Crystals in our skin, because I've heard too, you know, as you're shifting into a crystalline
Yeah,
body.
so it's like those little sparkles that you get sometimes that you know are attached to different gift cards or whatever it is, and so forth. The little glitters, I guess that they call it. Yeah, so your body's going through a transformation. Part of the transformation is changing its frequency, but it's also changing its base operating construct, because everything is light. Okay, so our body is a holographic projection of light with consciousness, with a very specific what do you call it, encodements of how it reflects. So when we started off in the organic 3D, in our very organic state of being 15,000 years ago, the bodies were, at that point in time, the bodies were encoded as crystal. Now, the full accentuation of those crystals were not fully active because it was illuminating along the way. When we went through the changes 10,000 years ago, it got shifted right down to carbon-based. What does carbon-based do? The carbon-based actually lowers the capacity of spectrums of light and frequency it can hold, okay? So that we would be able to play what we call the inverted matrix, the inverted 3D, 2D type of state of being, because we would, and it also created a slowing down of how the body would function, the way it would receive energy. Because the crystals that we were made from would take energy from the sun, energy from the air, the environment, the energy of that sourceness that was streaming through us and through Gaia at that point in time, and be able to encode that energy, those spectrums, into a what do you call a supportive state of being. at that time, that's why we did not need to eat. We did not have the same requirements. And because of those spectrums of frequency we held, we were able to communicate with, because those crystals also allowed us to use all of the DNA strands in active mode. Because each of the DNA strands were transmitters, receivers that were communicating with our body. And because of the crystalline state, that the crystals, it would be able to take all those different spectrums and utilize as part of the experience. Not only those energies, but also because of the fact of that crystal being able to hold so much more energy and so forth, the level of awareness and how you created your reality was much more supportive in that state. So all of that was kind of part and parcel of what was going on. So the so-called crystals that we were made up of, was very, very conducive to the design that we were created, because the crystals was also necessary for us to be able to function in organic 3D all the way to organic 9D, which we could have tapped into any period of time, but the full experience would be stage by stage. So when the modification happened, when we went to carbonic, everything got reduced. So in fact, now we reduced to consuming carbon, because food is carbon, a lot of the air is carbon, a lot of carbon, which we basically, utilize to create energy because of the tuning down that happened with the body. And a lot of the environment and everything got changed to work in that. So the reversing process that's going now is that we are shifting and have already started the process, and others more than others, some more than others, different stages, but we're all going through that process, is going from the carbon to the silicate to the crystalline. So the things that you're seeing, those crystals that you're seeing within yourself, and those are, instead of becoming fully crystal at that point, because that's going to happen along the way, but to start receiving those other frequencies. So you will notice the skin as being a huge receiver, because again, the skin utilizes the energies coming from the sun, and putting a ton of sunscreen and all of that stuff, we're just kind of covering that up and restricting it. But in essence, that light that's being reflected and those crystals are getting charged, which is activating other parts of the transformation that's occurring from carbon to silicate to what we call crystal. So that's why you'll see it. Now also your eyes, because they're crystals too, and the crystals are becoming more tuned because the layers of carbon that was put in as filters are getting thinner and thinner, so that even the light spectrum coming in from the sun, from our galactic central sun, and so forth, are going in and encoding and creating a modification, and also neural pathways are changing, and it's also stimulating. Now the crystal part also allows us to be able to use more of the DNA, because the DNA, you can turn it on, and that's what part of the process we're going in, but we cannot, until we go more into the crystal state, use all the inputs that are coming in, because the carbon and even the silicate has certain levels of restriction of how many light codes and quotient of consciousness and everything else that comes into play. So it can only use a certain amount. So this is why all of this is working hand in hand through those transformation. So what you're seeing is more of you preparing yourself to be able to have more of that light codes and so forth to come into you. And be able to charge, because you'll notice as those are becoming more active that the field of energy within yourself, even your aura, starts to change, and your connection to other aspects of yourself enhances in that regards. So that's all part and parcel of what's taking place. Was there anything you wanted to share around that?
No, I think that
Or
you
is
covered
that
that
too much detail and we have to erase it all?
I think that was
No.
perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll go on to another question.
Absolutely.
Okie dokie. Okay, how do we reprogram the subconscious mind and all that program we've absorbed when we don't realize that it's there?
Okay, so the idea of non-realization of a particular program that's stored in our subconscious. What does the subconscious mind do? The subconscious mind is a memory bank. It stores your experience. It stores everything that you see and experience. Okay? It also stores labels and definitions that are applied to a particular experience. Because the subconscious mind is not going to look at an experience like a camera. It's recording a movie, for example, your life movie, and it's recording it. It's just recording what it sees. It doesn't really apply any labels to it or definitions to it. It's just this part that will create the labels, then the definitions. Now, when it comes to the question, how do we clear that out? It's a fact of removing the labels is more of what is taking place. So what you're doing is removing the labels and the definitions. That's what you're removing. An experience is an experience. Now, the ego will use your subconscious memories of whatever that may be and then create a story to build up something that can trigger emotions and so forth. But it has to have a grip of some ideas because of the labels and definitions. Now, what you can do is that already whatever's going on, buttons get pushed, memories come up, certain polarity stuff ignites within ourselves, emotionally and otherwise. As they come up, you get to see them. They come to the surface. So they're just those movies are being brought up. And in fact, the ego is trying to stop you, but the ego is actually helping you in a way. It had that little fault in the operating system. It said, I'm going to push your buttons. But because of the state of consciousness that you're going in and are becoming more realization, you get to see the stories and programs and labels much more clearly. So when it comes to the deprogramming, what you're doing is removing the labels and definitions of what it meant. So for example, you had an experience as a child, and that experience was just an experience. And it may just been an experience until a label and definitions. Say that experience got labeled that, oh, you are not worthy, you're not good enough, you're not capable enough, or the fact that you're a bad person or something of that nature. That's the label that got applied. Okay? And then the label also had a definition. The definition is, oh, okay, not only you're not good enough, you're never going to be good enough for any of that nature. So those are labels that the ego has plugged in. And the definitions that have plugged in. So when you're looking at the subconscious memory of a particular event, whatever may have occurred for you as a child, I'm giving you this as an example so you have an idea. You now look at it, what does that mean to me? Why do I feel this way about it? I just really want to understand it. And you may feel that this whole idea of that experience meant that you were unworthy, not good enough, or that you were a failure, or anything of that nature. Now you look at it, okay, that's a label, that's a definition, that's kind of something there, but is it real? Is it real? Does it really mean that? And where's that even coming from? Is it something that I need to continue giving power to it? It's good. It's best that you write these things down as you're asking yourself the questions, because it helps you to stay on track. By looking at those definitions, then you can choose, is this true? Because what you can use is your inner guidance. You can tap into your soul by just putting your focus on your heart and say, do I still require in any way, shape, or form to give this label power? Because a label is a label. It's the power you give it, the definition and the meaning of how much it has to affect you. You're the one that applies that. And you say, well, do I still have to give it meaning and so forth? And that's why we talk about clearing the past, because what you're clearing is these things, the labels and the definition of the experience. Because from a heart perspective, from a soul perspective, even from your human entity perspective, when you're talking about the higher aspect of itself and the body's innate consciousness, an experience is an experience, a sensation is a sensation, an interaction is an interaction, an engagement is an engagement. It's all the definitions and all the reinforcements that have come in. Because even the label has no power until this is making the story. But you know, that story, it still comes in from that inverted matrix that was available at the time. And the inverted matrix made everything look real when it wasn't. It made it real when it wasn't. And when I say real, real meaning this is exactly what is. Now, there's nothing wrong that that happened. There's nothing wrong that we've given that part of it. But we're now beyond that, because as long as these labels are active and being utilized, it comes into our reality creation of our current experience. And this is the thing, and that's why a lot of it is coming up, so that we get to the point of saying, do I still need to feed this? Do I need to still play with it? Do I still need to give power to this? And as you come to the realization, no, I do not. Not because you have a judgment about it, because it's like, I'm done with that. I've passed on that. That's great. Move on. Let's go play. That's the key. So the clearing out of the subconscious mind, you're clearing the definitions and labels. So as they come up, you look into it. You look at what that event was attached to it and so forth. Now, there is a faster way to do it if you're in that state where you can look at it and the subconscious mind will will bring up a story of an event, and you go, yeah, great event, beautiful, blast, fantastic, I acknowledge it and I appreciate every part of it that I experienced, and I love that experience and I love it from a source perspective. But I no longer give power to it. I no longer identify to it. I no longer plug it into my reality any longer. But you need to be in a state of self-empowerment when you do that. So you can do that by doing one step first. And that is, you go into a quiet state, you focus on the breath, you ask your soul to embody you fully. You ask your soul, you say, soul, activate the full home frequency. What does that home frequency represent? It represents the highest frequency that the soul can access because of all its experiences. And also, not only that, but the highest aspect of its consciousness, so the frequency, the consciousness, and that is, in a way, that's powerful empowerment. And then you can now also say to yourself, I know I also activate within myself the highest source essence that my body can contain. Once you've done that, now you can look at things and it's not going to be so impactful to take you down the rabbit hole. It's just going to let you see it and be able to dissolve a lot of it. Then you can go a much more empowered state. I'm just giving you this as if you have a tendency to default in a disempowered state, which is very easy to do when all of this stuff is active. So you could see it in that way. So these are some of the tools you can use, because you're not erasing an experience, you're erasing the labels and definitions rather than the experience itself. Because a lot of times the people say, well, when I let go of the past, then what happens? I lose all my memory? No, what you're letting go of the past is a reference of the past to become part of your current reality, current creation, and future creation. It's about removing the labels. Whatever you experience at any point in time in your life, even 10 minutes ago, 1 minute ago, or 10 years, 20, 30 years, whatever, were sequences of experiences that you had at the time that supported you in the best possible way to bring you where you are today. All the other definitions, what it meant, it didn't mean, and so forth, that I'm a victim or all of that, those were just the labels and definitions that you're basically clearing out. So as they come up, acknowledge them, thank them, love it, and I've set you free. That's the fast way. The other way, you can do it also, which is in some cases you may have to do, and if it brings up a certain part of the memory where it goes back to a childhood or any part of your life where you had what you labeled as something intense, look at it from a different viewpoint. So you just play with that. Is there anything else you wanted to cover about that? We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
So I'm going to move on to a bigger question here.
A bigger question? Yes. I want just little baby ones.
Do you want this baby one?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. Okay, so this question is...
Too profound. Stop. Go ahead.
We're at the brink of being forced to be vaccinated. You say that we choose to play, but a huge portion of the public is against forced vaccination. How can we be finished with the inverted matrix, yet the 1% are still running the show and not for our good, but to kill a huge portion of the population? We can't just ignore the fact that these service to self people have an agenda, which they are not going to give up just because the inverted matrix is gone. I just don't understand how we are going to be able to stand up for ourselves when the lawmakers are the ones trying to kill off millions. Please, if you could find a way to enlighten us on how we create with this much opposition. Coming together in meditation is beautiful, but this is real inverted 3D problem we are facing. She says, I know I'm not the only one frightened by this. My friends in the UK are terrified.
Okay. I think we should be terrified. All right. That's a good question, actually. Yeah, and it is a biggie. That's for sure. All right. So, you have to understand that even though the inverted matrix, and we're not supporting the inverted 3D and 2D, we're still projecting it in some degree, and it's still reflective in our playground. Now, the so-called higher-ups, the ones that are giving the message coming down at this point in time, down to that so-called pyramidal aspect of it, the small few up here, it doesn't matter what agenda they may have. The agenda is the agenda. They're operating from that operating system, because most of these super top elites at this point in time, a lot of them we're not aware of, because a lot of the ones that we are aware of are just down the line, and they have gone through what you can call mind control or whatever it is, but it is still, just they can step out of any of those roles. And some of them have, yes, engaged in certain activities and rituals and so forth to activate what we call that Lucifer operating system in them to a certain degree, but it is unstable because they're not actual hybrids that can actually hold it and be rigid of it. So this whole thing about vaccinations, okay? You say, okay, well, do we need to be concerned about it? Aware? Yes. Concerned? No. Because as long as you're concerned about it, as long as you are going to be afraid of it, then it becomes much more real and it is much more empowered. Because the thing is, it doesn't matter what anybody's dictating. You have the opportunity, and this is what we're doing to ourselves. You're saying, I want to be empowered. How can I be empowered if you're taking away our opportunities to self-empower? Because we've been playing the victim role for the longest time. So we almost believe, not to our core, but close to it, that we have no say. That in one way or another, that others can dictate the way of life. What is being projected right now is saying, you need to do this mandatorily. You have no say, and this is going to affect you. There's several components to that. The first part is saying, we're not going to relinquish our instructions to you, saying, you're powerless, we tell you what to do, and yes, we may want to wipe out as many people as possible. But that's not possible. Absolutely not. It's an offering. But we have to understand that anyone that's going to check out or anyone that's going to go through any particular experience would be because they've agreed to do so. Or else it's not possible. It is smokes and mirrors and, just an illusionary component saying, you take these vaccines, it's going to kill a lot of people. Yes, that may be a vehicle that is provided, but it's up to us to take on the vehicle. Because the other part of it is, yeah, I can accept those vaccination, but those are codes. Those codes are up to us to turn on individually or not. You have to understand there's a lot of extras here that, are going to get to a point where I want to leave. So why not do this? Because this way I can leave in one way and put a lot of focus on the fact of self-empowerment. But that's not the thing. The agenda, whatever they may have, it's still up to us to initiate it and to say, yes, we're going to continue giving power. if you pay attention, notice, and many of us have noticed, that contradicting to what the mass media is saying and individuals are proclaiming and providing us with this idea that we need to be all vaccinated for us to have our freedom, there are more and more people that are speaking out and creating the breaking out of that spell that we've taken on, that these people, especially the higher ups, these so-called self-directed authorities in whatever areas, medical and otherwise, have a say, and not only have a say, that they're correct, and that we have to follow what they say. So it's really just bringing that accentuation to the point right now that we feel that stuck state, that compressed state, that victim state, that feeling that there's no other choice. So we finally say, wait a minute, we do not have to agree, we don't have to consent, we don't have to give any power to this. We have the freedom to do so. So the only thing the meditation does is to go and connect with that higher aspect of yourself. Because when you're in that higher aspect, you're no longer governed to the same degree. And when you say no from a higher aspect, that I'm not going to consent to support and so forth, not because there's something wrong, it's an offering. I'm offering you this. And it's like somebody coming to you and offering you dessert. It's up to you if you accept it or not. And what you experience from the dessert can be delightful, can be painful, depending on how your body wants to respond to it, or how you want to respond to it, or what labels and judgment you have about the dessert. Same thing with this. I know the analogy and the example might be quite a bit far-fetched, or in comparison. But what I'm saying is, we have chosen to become self-empowered. So what is it? Right now, what's being projected? Left, right, and center. Very powerfully, using media, using every source possible to put us in a space of disempowerment, feeling powerless, feeling victim, feeling that you have no say in any matter. For what reason? I'm making this box that's been this big, then this big, now this big, and this big, and here you are, feeling more and more and more confined, more and more powerless, more and more, how can I say it? Unable to create your own reality or collective reality. To this point you say, wait a minute. Okay, that was a nice dance. We're not going there anymore. I know who I am. Not only who I am co-creator here. And for us to co-create, I have to give my approval to participate. And I don't need to, because I have 20,000 times, 10x. This is 20,000x capacity to change, because I'm now going to be using higher frequencies. However, this 10x is 20x, 20,000x, or 10kx, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it 20kx. This 20kx diminishes as long as we're in this empowered state, so that the impact that you have is less. So when we do these global meditation, when we do your own personal meditation, when you're connecting to that aspect of yourself, and that's why I keep reminding you about this whole thing: bring your soul in, activate home frequency, turn up the force source essence, then this 20kx is connected, is activated within yourself more powerfully, so that whenever you say, no, you know something? We are not agreeing, not from anger, frustration, or judgment. We are not agreeing for that to be the main focus of this co-created reality any longer. We are no longer agreeing to support that old inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D way of life. We no longer choose to give power to specific individuals that dictate whatever their mandate is. Yes, from that Lucifer operating system, removing a huge amount of population, brainwashing everybody, putting everybody in a disabled state was their intention. But we have to understand that part of us that has come here did not come here to say, okay, I want to see what that experience is. Yes, that may have been the case at different times and different incarnations, the ones that have chosen to do that. Absolutely. But that is not the modality now. Some will still choose to do that. But majority are saying, no, 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 no. We're going to wrap this up. And this is why we're doing what we're doing. We're wrapping this up. We're done with that. You know, you guys, you don't no longer have to play those roles for us. We're done. We're gonna reshape this world. It's not like, you know, because the thing is, we take whatever this story is, or whatever this small tiny group, which is 0.001%. Just put that into perspective here. Percent is the key, what you call full operating Lucifer operating system. And it doesn't matter how many others are involved in the different tiers, which, you know, go as low as 1%, because they're in different stages of it. They were never, ever, 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 ever given the authority to do so, but they also, to assist us at this point in time, taken on those roles. But the thing is, even if we just isolated that, we still have 99% of 7.7 billion people that can say anything. And we don't even need that large of a portion. What is 7.7 billion divided by 20,000? What does that work out to? What is it? 350 million people? Probably not even that. It's probably less than that. I don't know. I haven't done the math. Okay. So what are we looking at? It's not that huge amount required for it. So when it comes to this mandatory vaccination, yeah, it's going to scare us. It's going to feel disempowered and so forth. But you know what's happening? More and more people are speaking out. More and more people are realizing, hey, wait a minute, this game is somewhat rigged here. Even the most people that have been in the most sleep state are starting to question. Even the ones that have denied and said, oh, you guys are all conspiracy theorists and you guys are crazy because, you know, these guys, especially the ones that are called the health experts, whatever they're saying at this point in time, I'm not giving power to it anymore. I'm no longer saying, oh, they're the gospel truth. They're the ones that are saying exactly what it is. You're now connecting and saying, how does this resonate with me? Is this part of my existence, my creation, my essence? Is this true? Do I give power to that? You come to the realization, no, this is not for me to participate and to engage in the same way any longer. This is where we're stepping in. So this whole mandatory vaccination is just pushing us even further and finally say, hey, we're done with this game. Is it going to be a revolt? I don't think so. But it is a non-compliance and a movement forward where you're saying, you know something, we have a choice. We also are open to look at what other alternatives of what this rollout is going to represent. And do we choose to have that experience? There's going to be people in the 2D inverted 3D, they may choose to do so, and they will have whatever experience they need to have, which could mean exits, could mean compromised states of being, whatever it is. If you've been affected by already previous vaccinations, previous flu shots, previous whatever, as long as you're getting into that empowered state, you are now going in and turning off those operating codes so that your body starts to shift. So it no longer has whatever it has originally created. Now, in some cases, you may choose to hold on to it until exit points or whatever, but that's not really going to be that widespread, because at this point it's just doing that. So the polarity part that's being accentuated is who doesn't want this and the ones that want to mandate it. Look at it this way. Right now, more and more people are becoming more aware and realize. Why? Because they're pushed to the max. This whole confinement thing has been pushing us to the point of coming to say, wait a minute, look how many more people. First, we were all agreeing, yeah, we better stay in our homes, do this, whatever it is, whatever the mandate is. Now more and more people are going out and saying, we want freedom. We're done with this game. Okay, it was a perfect opportunity for us to experience that, a perfect opportunity for us to connect with ourselves, perfect opportunity to connect with others. But now look at what happened. Yes, has it changed the landscape? Absolutely. Did it filter through some of the things that we needed to filter? Absolutely. But look, like the example I gave in the last episode or the episode before, or the part of episode, is that thing that's like the wizard that's behind the curtain and that, you know, has been projecting this big monstrous thing that this is authority, this is our control, we cannot judge it, question it, or anything of that nature, by this small little group or this one little person creating this illusion. I'm using this as just as an example from the movie The Wizard of Oz. That curtain is no longer a thick curtain that you can't see through. It's a shower curtain, a clear one, so you can see it. This is why you're seeing that the people that are speaking out, for many people, are realizing no longer, oh my God, what are they saying? Oh, whatever. More and more people are realizing, what are they talking about? It doesn't even not only make sense, but you can see that they have no idea what they're talking about. Not only that, you also see the bullshit or lies or whatever, excuse some of the language there, that is being projected. The reason it's so clear it's just because of the fact they're saying, I want you to see this so that you can break out of it. You can shift away from it. We don't want to hold on to this. It's time for you to move on. So what can we do? Can we make it more transparent? Can we actually put the spotlight now? So instead of the shower curtain just being clear, we're going to turn on the lights so you can see it even more brilliant. It's like, I'm here. I'm pushing you until you finally decide, yeah, we're not doing this. But we're going to say no, not because of fear, no because of potential consequences, no because you're judging it. You're saying no, it's because you're not plugging it into your reality. You're not plugging it into your extended reality. You're not plugging it into the global reality any longer. You're not going to fight it. You're going to say no cooperation from us, no collaboration from us, no agreement from us, no consent from us. Because you have to understand, everything is made up anyways. So hopefully that I provided enough clarity. If there was any area I did not cover around that. Do you feel empowered about this, what I just said?
Yes, I absolutely feel that what you said. It's really basically, it's not whether there's a virus or not a virus, a vaccine or not a vaccine. It's about our fear around it. Are we going to be fearful in our lives? Because that's where we lose our power and our control. Because the question had been, how can we stand up for ourselves when the lawmakers are the ones trying to kill off millions? But it's us that has the control by not being in fear. So if there's fear around there being lawmakers, then we need to look at what our fears are and find ways to release it.
Well, I better change markers here. I know I don't like to use these words over and over again because a lot of misconceptions around that, but both of these programs require what? Fear. You look at the fear for what it is. It's a mental projection. It doesn't matter who tells you what could possibly happen to you. It's still an illusion. Nothing, like I've always said, these cannot dictate your life. They convince you to dictate your own life. They convince you to follow through. Mandatory or not, of anything that's coming from any level of authority, which is all made up anyways, it's really up to us to choose to agree to take it on or not. We're going to scare you. We're going to put fear in you that if you don't do it, you don't have freedom. If you don't do it, oh my God, you can just pick up this nasty thing that's going to do things to you. That is just the illusionary part that's being projected. The choice you have to make from an empowered state. Do I comply? Do I agree? Do I want to still have that experience? Not polarized experience, the experience. Do I plug it into my reality or not? That's basically it. So the thing is, these programs know, because of the way it's confined and written, that we have to create fear, illusionary and otherwise. And there's a backup to this. I was talking to Kimberly about it earlier. The backup is we have to be afraid for fear of fear. So we get really caught up into it. But in that empowered state, you see for what it is, just an illusion, just a projection that we choose to engage in or not. So roll out the mandatory whatever. People, you have the choice to say, do I take what the status quo is projecting, or do we turn around and say, not interested? Remember, the more of us that say no, the more of us that do not support or get caught up in the fear, even the ones that are doing the injections or will be doing the injections, even the medical system are starting to question things. Many of them are speaking out, but more and more are going, hey, wait a minute, I'm not seeing anything good out of this. And if there's going to be a bunch of people that say, okay, I'm the first one in line, they're the ones that want to use it to be an example to awaken some others. Eventually, even the ones that are injecting, that are seeing the results, are going, wait a minute here. We got an issue here. Like, who tested this stuff? Who's saying it? I'm not seeing results here that are favorable. That's going to ripple even more powerfully. And guess what? More empowerment, more everything. So I wouldn't give it too much power. I know if you got fear, some people say process the fear. What I say is be with that fear. Give yourself the opportunity to experience the fear and look at it. And step back as an observer to look at the fear. Because the fear is this illusionary projection that doesn't have any substance and has no grip until we give it the opportunity for that. Okay, I think we covered that. Good.
Okay, so on to...
Did I get too excited?
No, I think it was perfect, actually.
Okay.
Do you want a light question or a
Yeah, give me a light
lighter
one.
one? Okay, here's a little light
Can
one.
I lie down and relax for a
Yeah.
while? Go ahead.
Okay. Is it true that the angelic family is disbanded since April 4th because we are to be sovereign beings and not depend on angels anymore?
That's an easy one?
Yeah.
Yeah, they all packed their bags and took off. They're on vacation right now.
Their wings.
They're all vacationing at some place that doesn't, well, first of all, they have lots of cottage cheese. And the other part of it is that they're not dealing with all this level of polarity. No. What's happened is that at different stages along the way, the angelic realms and the guides have been, much more integrated in assisting us in ways. But what's happened is that they've been pulling back. And when I say pulling back, it's giving us the opportunity to become self-empowered. Because there's a certain reliance that we've accepted and or acknowledged or connected to or activated within ourselves about our guides and angelic realms. So the angelic is saying, well, okay, angelic realms, take care of this for me. Well, what happens is that that only promotes a disempowered state. Now, at that one point, that was necessary or beneficial and we agreed upon, but now the pulling back and the next level of pulling back that did occur then was for us to become self-empowered so that we are actually accessing that source consciousness. Just give me a second here. Okay, I just keep seeing it peaking here. So, so it's giving us the opportunity to see ourselves as source or our own higher authority within ourselves rather than a dependency. And this is the thing. It's like, okay, now it's for you. Some people call it sovereignty, but sovereignty, what does that mean? Meaning that, you know, we are our self-navigate. We've always have been. But going more into that realization and also using our source essence, our source capacities, our creation ability more without having the dependency. So did they dismantle? Not so much to dismantle. Their input, their holding hands now have been less. They've actually pulled back to not hold you up, prop you up. In fact, how can I say, what's the word? You know when somebody's saying rooting, is it rooting? Is that the word? When you fall down and say, okay, come on, you can get up, instead of always there pulling you back up, propping you up, dusting you off, and then having you walk again until you fall and they pick you up again. So now it's not that. You fall, you say, okay, great, you can get up now. You know that you can get up here. You have the capacity, dust it off, keep walking, whatever it is. So more of that is the call that's happened at this point in time. So it's more of the whole, how can I say, the opportunity for us to be able to use more of our self-empowerment state, more of our source essence state. So this is kind of why that occurred. But this is the only, I think it's the third or fourth stage, I can't recall, but each time they pulled back a little bit more. Remember, some years ago, a decade or so ago, maybe 2 decades ago, you know, we used to call our angelic guides all the time. Oh yeah, can you find me a parking space? Can you do this? Can you do that? And they were more facilitating because, again, they kind of look at things and how can I help you through this experience, because they're observing from your experience and everything else. And then that stopped or reduced tremendously. Now, for some individuals, they still had that connection to a certain degree, but now it's like, okay, your God sense, your source essence and so forth, it's time to use that more so that, in fact, you now create it without the reliance. So you get to exercise the muscle that we didn't exercise as much. And that exercise of that muscle that I'm referring to as an example is basically the creator essence and how you can shape it. So you don't require the angelic realm to hold your hand. You can walk. Now it's still there in the sense of that they're maybe rooting and supporting you in the sense of that, but never picking you up, never doing anything for you to the degree it was doing. Now there's going to be some individuals, they may still have a little bit of holding hands here and there for very specific reasons, but they're all temporarily for that. But the majority, yes. So hopefully that addresses it. You coming from the angelic realm, being an archangel and all of that stuff that decided to take on a physical form, what can you share about that? Not that I wanted to put you on the spot, but I did.
Yes, you did, and I have nothing to share on that at this time.
So what does your team say? You're on your own, Kim. Burley.
Yes, I'm on my own, that's for sure. Well, we all are. We're on our own, right?
Well, we are and we're not, because
yeah, we
in
are
a
and
sense
we're not. That's right.
we're all in it together.
I think
we're all one.
and someone shared that they're cheerleaders, and they
Yes.
are cheerleaders. So they cheer us on, and they're there with their love and support. So you can tap into the energy of them and the energy of what they share that way. But as for direct responses, it appears they don't want to give direct answers. Exactly.
So that's great. I love that example about the cheerleading and so forth, and urging you and assisting you in that way rather than doing it for you or holding you up or anything of that nature. Because the thing is, when you fall down and you now have to get your own essence to get you up, the very essence, you become stronger and you become more and more empowered. So that's the mandate, and that's the whole theme of the month of May. So look at how perfectly coordinated that is. You know, the empowerment was the full month of April, you know, and now we're in oh, just slipped my mind.
May.
Yeah, what was the theme of May? Embracing, sorry, okay.
Oh, embracing.
Yeah, embracing your essence, yourself. So it's like empowerment, embracing that empowerment, embracing that essence that you are, that creator that you are. Okay. Let's go on to a heavy question or a lighter question.
This is another kind of lighter question, I feel. For
Thank goodness.
Okay, Annie is asking, I've begun to see code on the ceilings in my home, like a elegant blueprint in orange lines. I saw it first after your love meditation. Is this part of the organic 3D projection?
Yes, because as your vibration changes, as your frequency changes, you can see codes. You can see what you call the matrix. Okay? Now, I'm going to talk about the matrix a little bit on one of the upcoming episodes, just to get a little bit more detail around that, but that will happen then. But yes, so you're basically seeing not only the codes that are coming through, but you also see the codes that are used to create and shape and make modification in our reality. So you know, when you're doing the meditations, you're going to have various different things, because first of all, we're coming together in a group, so we're supporting each other. And when I say supporting, we're basically merging all our different energies, so it becomes even more accentuated, much more expansive, you know, in a way of us be able to experience all of that. But at the same time, you know, you're turning another level of yourself on, so you would be able to see a lot of the things that you weren't able to see as clearly before. The seeing is also, by seeing it, is actually not only encoding you, but it's also showing you that there is a process going on, and it allows you to connect with the fact we are, you know, really facilitating ourselves to move forward in a huge way. So it is part and parcel of what's really taking place, because a lot of us are receiving, well, everybody is, but a lot of us are actually not only receiving it and are acknowledging the receiving of those codes and whatever else, but are also putting in, you know, activating them within themselves, because they're more in that receptive. Others will, the codes just go in, like any codes that go in, and then they get turned on at different times or activate certain parts of it at different times, depending on how they want to utilize it moving forward.
Okay. So, next question. Just moving right along here.
Okay.
Okay. In your last interview with Todd Medina, if I understood correctly, you said that by the end of this year, there will be a group of humans aligned with humanity's best interest, who will decide how to implement the changes for the new organic 3D Earth. If this is the case, then some big changes will have to happen along this year for humans to be finished with the inverted 3D game, correct?
Okay, so by the end of the year, there will be a group of people that will already start looking at how to reshape the direction moving forward. Again, taking in consideration everything that is supportive for us as a oneness unit. It does not mean that they will be stepping in and sidelining everything right away. They will be being more instrumental to kind of already start to reshape where the direction we are going, because collectively we've agreed to go into that direction. So the power will shift away from this, because we're, you know, I'm not saying 100%, a shift away from the control structures that exist currently, because they will play the part until, as long as there's recipients that are open to it. Because we're still very much playing in the polarity world, because we still have given a lot of power to the polarity world, and that's part of the purging that's going on. So the group of people that will come together, which I'm choosing to be involved in from a soul perspective, of course, that we're looking at, okay, other options based on much more expanded ways than what we've played up to this point in time. So we have adopted and have been played a certain modality that was all a construct from the inverted matrix, 2D inverted 3D, Lucifer operating system, and what we call the Satan program that works through the ego, or is what the ego is labeled really. All of this, so this that we've had so far in our operating system, what we're looking at right now is that we're now looking at it and say, okay, let's create a new series of ways of life and bridging from one to the other, where now all of this aligns with what? Collaboration, cooperation, oneness, and flourishing rather than survival. And look at the need of polarity, the need of compromising the human experience, minimizing the human experience. It will look at how we can do the opposite. Instead of making a very restricted, this will be a more expansive. So what systems do we need to unplug? What ways of life that we've adopted that needs to be changed? So you're looking at the medical system will go for a reformation, where it's basically about creating an environment and a support system to allow the physicalities to be in its best form. This will be part of the consideration. How can we do that? What technologies we can bring in, what operating systems we can bring in, and what we need to unplug. So that will start to be part of the stuff that's on the table being brought in. Looking at the different constructs of the educational system and saying, okay, these old modalities that reflected all inverted matrix and stuff, we can start unplugging, allowing people to be more self-empowered in the sense of using their creativity, their imagination, and also to stimulate it and to support, especially the kids that are coming in, and many of us that have gone to a process of more of self-realization, how we can base that so that we can advance accordingly. The same thing with a lot of the monetary structures, the governmental structures, and all of that stuff will all be looked at, coming together and create a new plan, a new rollout of different things that will come into place that will support us in the new stages that we're going, which is, again, this was constructed in the 2D and inverted 3D, inverted matrix. These are all the stuff that was in there. Let's put matrix. And here, this we're talking about, I could have put it under there, actually it would have been easier. But okay, so this will be reflective of our organic matrix. I have to kneel down for this one. Organic matrix and organic 3D can go up to 12D, but we're not really going to be going anywhere near that. So anytime soon. So let's do this. Let's play with what we have as an option. Organic 5D, 3D and 5D with the option to plug in other aspects of it. So we're looking at coming together with people that are more conscious, that see the way things are structured, and to use that to create a new platform of how we can roll out from this, roll this out, and unplug ourselves from those systems. The rolling out and so forth, you have to understand we've been given the opportunity, collectively we've agreed upon, to have up to 3 years, which we're already in the first half of the first year at this point, or not quite half, but anyways, we're in the first part of the rollout of purging out the inverted 3D, the inverted matrix, the 2D, and all of that stuff that's going on right now. So even when this is being constructed, it will also address some of the current situations that we're dealing with right now with the power that we've given there. So that's already, this individually and somewhat collectively is already happening in the sense where more and more people are stepping out and sharing other information and coming together to share various different information to kind of create that platform. So when the question comes in and saying, well, a lot of changes have to occur, yes, I agree upon that. But this construct of putting that into play and rolling it out will not be all completely by the end of the year, but the layout and already the construct will already start, which is already the way it's being stabilized and destabilized. Certain parts of it, of this old system, is already making room for that to take place. So the changes are already occurring, and you could see it right now. Look at how much we individually are experiencing within ourselves. This conversation that we're having right now, this information I share, you wouldn't have been open a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years ago. Some may have, but to a certain degree, but now you're more ready. Look at how much is coming to the surface which you've never seen before. This particular situation right now, this year 2020, with all of the polarity accentuations and all the energies and everything that are coming through right now, is bringing up such opportunities that wouldn't have been that easily to be expressed or experienced in any way unless all of this rolled out the way it's rolling out right now. So it is setting the stage for this. So it's a matter of bringing now people together that are like-minded and that are expansive and are going to look at how we can create the platform. You still have the free will. Please keep this in mind. You have the free will. How much of you want to play in this before you start going into the organic part of it. This whole thing we have to understand. Why didn't we just shift? Because we could have just gone, okay, we're going to be from inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D, 5D, and organic matrix. The call was, no, 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 no. We want to empower. We want to experience this. We want to, get to the point where we can transition. So the free will was, I want to do it in stages. Yes, the stages are being accentuated. Yes, the stages are being very pushy in the sense because we don't want to take the scenic route and get stuck on the scenic route too long. If we're going to take a scenic route, it's going to be, oh, great, interesting, next, let's keep going. And you're going to feel that push, and that's what's happening in that regard. So a lot of more changes are occurring. Look at the changes we've already had now. We're not even going back to the old world we have. Yes, there's going to be resemblance of it to some degree, but a lot of things have changed within ourselves and the collective. More questioning coming up, more clarity is coming up, more of our access points are coming into play. So there's so much going on. So at this point, that's what, was there anything I didn't cover around that that you can throw in, or maybe you want me to elaborate? Because to me it makes total sense, but then,
It made sense to me as well. So
okay.
Unless someone else needs more clarification, they can put on the chat.
Okay.
So I was going to go to a different question altogether now.
Okay, good.
In it, Gretchen is asking, how does astrology fit in? Is astrology a program?
Okay. Those were some of the questions we looked at earlier today. Is this from extra stuff coming in? Yeah. Okay. I don't remember seeing those questions.
On the chat. So.
Okay. Okay. Regarding astrology. Astrology was a platform that was created where certain alignments of planets, certain energies transmitted from planets, your alignment on the grid line, your entry points of the influence of different planets and different energies and different so-called collective deity energies and so forth that may have played out, was actually the baseline part that came into place of creating a certain characteristics of ourselves, and also using those energetic influences to kind of stimulate certain characteristics within ourselves. So but that also encodes, you know, our name, our date of birth, our time, our positioning on the planet, what alignments we're carrying on throughout all that. So that all of that was very instrumental because of what was playing out in the inverted matrix and the operating system of that nature. Now, you will notice as you become more aware, more conscious, where your energy starts to shift, your frequency starts to go into a different realm, the influence of those particular alignments, the different characteristics and everything else that we may have taken on become less and less and less and less influential to the point where it no longer. So now you, instead of having other inputs to kind of shape your reality, because we were in a state of self-governance in a realized state, we kind of said, okay, we'll accept that. So I'm going to choose to connect with those certain parts of it. So everybody in one way or another have been affected to some degree. Now there are individuals or souls that have come in and other human entities and soul, physical representation that have very, very minimal input from that, and others have a little bit more, but the majority all have had some input. So that's kind of coming out of it. It's more instrumental when we're playing this, and it's going to be less and less instrumental to the point of non-instrumental. Now, there's a stimulation, how can I call it? An encodement and a stimulation, what the astrology may have played out for us, because we were not in the self-governing, controlling, self-creation, self-realized creation, so that we had a dependency of certain alignments to create stimulations of various stages to create the variety, because a lot of it was to create variety too for us, create variety for one another, but also create variety in our own particular life, because every time a certain influence would kick in at certain cycles, because there are cycles and so forth, it would stimulate changes, stimulate certain things in our lives. So now what we're stepping into at this point in time is that they're almost like all lit up in a very powerful way. Of course, each one is still very stimulating in certain stages of it, but we now have, with all these other energies that are coming in, we have to understand even the energies of the astrology have all upgraded so that they don't carry the same codes, the same frequencies of before. It will be all been upgraded, and it's upgrading constantly, so that what we may have would have experienced before with certain alignments it's going to be very different now, because of the fact that we are activating more of that part of it. Now, the activation of certain of the astrologies also affected some of the rules of playing health, openness through education, monetary, alignments with one another. It affected relationships and all of that stuff. You will notice that as you're going into that, it no longer, this is the organic stuff, no longer will have the same impact, because now we're self-navigating much more and using everything moment by moment rather than using cycles or impulses or anything of that nature. So even when the impulses come in, even with the upgraded version of it, it's really just stimulating a self-empowerment at that point. So I don't know if that makes sense to you. Is there anything you want to throw in there? Because
No,
it's like that could be a whole big talk
yeah.
about it, but it is changing too.
It serves for now.
It serves for now, even though it's not playing the same role as it was before. For some people, yes, because they're still very deep into it, but it's changing. Even the modalities that we use to create changes within ourselves have been changing. So when we're looking at it, the upgrades are still facilitating us as we go into the transitional part more and more on a collective scale. Individually, some of us already are not affected by it in any degree as before.
Okay. So on to the next question. All right. I know they seem to be jumping all over the place, but that's what makes this fun.
That's right. Let's have some fun.
Okay. You said the Lucifer Satan programs are being cleared, not only from our planet, but from our galaxy. Is that true?
Yes, yes. It started at the galaxy a lot sooner. Um, it is a program that was designed to create a certain experience. There have been certain beings and certain planets that adopted it, similar to how when it was offered to planet Earth, it was adopted. Some of them have already gone through the transitions and have completed with it, so it's no longer influencing in any way, shape, or form, or being part of it in their planets. In the galaxy, the need for it, or the influence they may have had because of the polarity stuff that it provided, and the level of disconnect that it provided, is no longer conducive, because it has been very much restricting, even though there was a perfection to that, restricting the progress we could have made into reconnecting to ourselves as that source essence, as the expression. So that level, what you call divinity, and the level that you call about bringing that true nature of ourselves through. So it is being purged. Is it going to be removed completely? Yes, at one point or another. It's not anytime soon that I am aware of, because the last time I've connected with the ones that were overseeing that, as we've done so, that it's being purged off various planets, and a lot of them already have been purged. There is some isolation through certain planets where the ones that I've held on to that will still be able to maintain it for a short period of time. That short period of time is not like our short period of time, because time is time, but time is not real either. But for certain parts of it, holding that certain energy, but really that energy is only to allow us to become self-empowered, and then it no longer is required. So even though the streaming of that operating system is gone, even the satellite transmission of it is gone, the invert matrix was removed completely. That was part of that operating system. And also the ego's impact of it has been unplugged to the point where it's no longer being stimulated, supported. We are still in the process of purging it out. So a lot of the hybrids that exist, that is that 0.001% that is working with the 1%, they're no longer being supported to the same degree. So that is breaking down, and this is where that, a lot of the older rituals that they were doing, because the energies have been coming in for quite some time. And the dismantling and the breaking down has been occurring since 1987, actually. And then further in 2012, and now in 2020, it's becoming less and less, because to the point now we've actually turned off so many things that would have originally supported. So the only existence they have is to really continue to push it. But even that, a lot of the rituals that they were doing are being exposed now, because they're saying, please see it so that we don't reinforce this. So that that part of their hybrid encodements of the Lucifer operating system is diminishing within themselves too. And even the souls that have actually taken on that operating system is no longer coming onto the planet in any way. The ones that are here are the ones that are actually going through transformation too. And again, when any of that is taken on. So is it being unplugged in a sense of galactic as the same way as in the planet? Yes. The galactic started a lot sooner than ours here on planet Earth. The planet Earth maintained to be the experimental playground because there was a request for that. So now it's we're online to do that purging thing. So all of the stuff that was influencing it before, even the ones that actually used to visit, can no longer visit and no longer come here to support it. It's only just the hybrids that are left, and the hybrids are now being reinforced. And even when they're doing the so-called rituals that would create extreme. So you have to understand this operating system this program and this program to support this of these hybrids do require fear, survival, anger, reaction of intensified polarization. It does require self-destruction of each other. This is why it creates the illusion you can't trust anybody, you have to fight with anybody, you have to protect yourself, you got to have guns, you got to have this, you got to have that. And if you look at a lot of the media, if you look at a lot of the movies and whatever else, it does project that, where there's right, wrong, good, bad, evil, and whatever else. It creates fear, it creates that, even though the subconscious mind is taking all of that in and giving it more labels and definition, reinforcement. So this is why the changes that we're going in, the more conscious you become as your energy elevates, you're no longer going to go into fear. So right now, even the fear of the vaccine, the fear of the virus, the fear of that, you know, we're compromised, and the fear of Armageddon, the fear of, you know, the planet going underwater, or the fear that, you know, that in one way or another that we're going to destroy ourselves, the fear that there's all these other enemies and so forth, and the belief around that is really being perpetuated to such a degree to just stimulate this so that it reinforces this part. But the thing is, we're starting to see it and not support it to the same degree. Now, a lot of people are still very deep into it in compared to the ones that are not. But even the ones that have started are fluctuating back and forth. And so the need of polarity, even light and dark, and judgment of self, all feed that part of it. So we are getting support in the sense of the energy that Gaia is providing, the energies that are coming from our sun, the energies that are coming from our galaxy itself, the energies that are coming in from those planets that are aligned, that have already upgraded. And then our soul stepping in more and more into that source essence of itself, so that all of it is contributing. And the ones that are making huge changes in themselves and are actually perpetuating this new operating system, which is the organic, which is not all that new. It's 15,000 years old for a full 5,000 years, but it's upgraded anyways. And the organic 3D, organic 5D and beyond are all facilitating from that. So all of that is actually removing more and more, purging and minimizing to the point of no longer functionality of what we call the inverted 3D, 2D, inverted matrix that we still project out. Because a lot of people sometimes say, well, how come we still see everything in reverse? Well, because everything was built to that, and we've adhered to it as a way of life, and now we're starting to come to a realization that that is no longer supportive and no longer a requirement. And so we're going through that process of deprogramming. Okay, we're not going to go too much longer. We'll say another 10 or so minutes, and that's it.
Yeah, so the last question,
Okay.
I'm debating if this would be, well, it's been a question that's come up before.
Okay.
The trauma one.
Who's got trauma?
I'll read the question. It's
Okay.
long.
Yeah, go ahead.
And this will be our last question for today, though.
Okay.
Okay. Why would a soul choose to play the role of victim in an experience that involves long periods of extreme physical pain? Why would they risk getting the body stuck in pain and the entity stuck in trauma to the point that the soul is not interested in staying in that body? Such experiences can create severe trauma that might sometimes be carried on by the entity to other life experiences and clutter the astral field with thought forms and lost entities. This extremely polarized game we choose to play on planet Earth got us to de-evolve to the point that we were slowing down the evolution of other souls in the galaxy and needed a lot of help to get out of it. So what's the big appeal of this game, especially playing the victim role? There's got to be something really amazing to gain from this experience that a soul could not gain from any other experience. As far as I can understand, what is it? The reason I'm asking this question is because I'm trying to come to terms and help others come to terms with the fact that millions or billions of children and adults have been victims of satanic ritualistic abuse. Please consider that this is possibly the most difficult subject for us humans to deal with.
Yeah, I don't know if I can deal with that today. All right, good question, good question, good question.
It's a big question.
Yeah, I'm glad that's the last one because I'll be running out of juice after that.
Yeah.
Not because of the question, it's just because we're almost 2 hours here. All right, so, and I don't want to overtax everybody at this point. When we're looking at from a soul perspective, okay, a soul before form, before taking on a physical form or incarnating in different physicalities, or even planet Earth at this point, does have the opportunity to stay in non-form and observe. It has the opportunity, and it does utilize it, taking forms on different galaxies, on different dimensions, at different energies and different experiences and different forms that have different ways of handling the game of life. A soul understands a game as a game. It sees that an experience is an experience. I can give you an examples. I've seen people that once they transition, prior to transitioning, when it comes to soul's perspective, that felt so lost to the degree where they felt not only powerless, they felt like the deepest state of victim, deep state of trauma, deep state of feeling completely unfairly treated, experienced, or whatever you want to call it. When leaving the body, and the body unplugging is unplugging from the mind, so what are you unplugging from? You're unplugging from this. To the point of coming to such a realization that without this, you see everything as a game. Polarity is an opportunity to play with in terms of transition. And it's a ride that is exciting in a way. Now, when we're looking at an example, we can look at an example of a roller coaster. Like, why would somebody be drawn to a roller coaster that gets you to the point of feeling like you're going to lose it, or you're going to barf out whatever you had in lunch or whatever it is, to such extremes? Because there's an appeal of such elevated sensorial experience that is mind-boggling, and that's the soul doesn't see it in that fashion, but sees an opportunity. I transition back and forth all the time, and we all have to some degree, and the key is having the memory of it. But as a soul, you're looking at it as, oh, there's a playground here, there's a playground here, been there, done that, done this, and oh, there's planet Earth there. And what does planet Earth provide? It provides something extremely, extremely powerful as an experience that in one way or another it says, wow, I want to see what I can do there. I want to see how much of this separation polarity that's being offered there to complete amnesia, to the point of when you do experience that, it's something that cannot be experienced otherwise. There's such an appeal to it, such an excitement about it, that it's willing to go for it and stage it to the point that it can have that experience. Now, it's not only just the experience, it also may choose and may have made agreements that, okay, if I go play there, what is my offering? What can I go do there? What can I share? What insight? What energy? What capacities that I can stimulate while I'm there? Not only for soul advancement, and you have to understand, every experience you have as a soul, your soul advances, polarized or otherwise. Polarized or otherwise. But it also advances your twin soul, It also advances your soul family. It also advances your oversoul. And it advances all the other souls that are connected. But it also advances all the souls that are playing on the planet, being soulmates and non-soulmates, because we're all one anyways, but other aspects of yourself. So each one will come here to have those experiences. And is it in jeopardy in the sense of going, I can get totally lost there? Yeah, that's a pretty interesting experience. But the moment I leave there, okay, I now know that was just a dream, a game, or whatever projection that I went through, and I'm not scathed by it. I may carry some imprints around that, saying if I want to utilize it at one way or another as part of my next incarnation or not. But there's a part to that, and I'm hoping that I remember to share that part for you there. The other part is each soul coming in is bringing in a different frequency, a different level of consciousness, especially the souls that have been coming in the last 30 years. And each one is another sequence of advancement that it brings in. So even though the body, the human entity, may go into that very polarized state, you have to understand the body has to agree to be part of it. It's not the soul's dictation or demanding. There's an agreement by the body, innate consciousness, to purge certain things or to accentuate certain things to get to the point of purging. The human entity, the same. It says, okay, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to allow some of my past stuff to come up and whatever else to accentuate another level of polarity. The soul that comes in is bringing in and saying, okay, I'm going to hold a certain energy, a certain light, a certain consciousness, whatever it is, and I'm going to lose some of that while I'm going to play with it. But the alignment of that soul with that human entity, with that physicality, creates a powerful combination that creates some form of shifting anyways. So the whole idea that we experience the trauma is a collective agreement between the soul, the human entity, and the collective, the physicality, but it's also reflective in a way from the collective perspective. So when we're talking about that, in that arrangement, each time the body advances, even in its traumatic state, because it purges a lot of its trauma whenever it is no longer, because it will merge back to Gaia. And Gaia's frequency is already fairly high platform. Even if it's organic 3D and organic 5D, it's there. The human entity itself is basically elevating with all the energies coming in, and it's also learning from the different connections and experiences that it has. And of course, the souls are coming in more and more advanced. What's happening right now, so that you understand, is that any soul that leaves is going through a purging process. This has been instigated quite a while now. Back in, I think it's 2012, when it was brought to the next level. So what does that mean? That a soul will no longer carry any part of the imprints of this life. So traumatic or otherwise, it doesn't carry it with it. The unfinished business no longer exists. You step out of this physicality, this reality right now, you purge every part of it. Where it wasn't doing that before. Before, it would carry some of it that it wanted to apply either on another incarnation from another planet or an incarnation on this planet. So that's purging it. So it's no longer carrying it. So the souls that are coming in are not bringing in older baggage anymore. It's not from a soul perspective in any way. When it comes to the human entity, it goes through a similar process. It actually looks through the purging process of what is absolutely necessary for its potential usefulness in any incarnation. Now, that doesn't mean an individual incarnation. It could be the collective incarnation. Because A lot of times what happens to human entities, they don't maintain its integrity of what the previous incarnation may have had. It could merge into the collective human entity and then reconstruct itself to update itself. There are going to be certain human entities that have gained so much wisdom and knowledge and have certain skill sets that can be used in the next incarnation, so it will maintain certain specific parts of it. When it comes to Gaia itself, or what we call the physicality, the human physicality with its innate consciousness, it will merge again with Gaia, and the next form of physicality will not create another very traumatic or any of that part that was created with the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D part of the experience. It purges that too, because the energies merge, and of course a new physicality coming in will not carry that as a powerful imprint that it has to purge. So these are some of the changes that have occurred, you know, through the different stages. And all of this started in 1987, and then it was carried into 2012 and now into 2020. So the souls that are coming in are tuned for capacities to step into 5D. It's not coming in with anything less than. How much of it activates right away will be dependent, because it will have the opportunity to engage in the organic 3D if it's going to benefit, but most of them, all of them pretty well, are coming in already encoded for 5D. The souls that have been here that are what you call indigo have just stepped into a further. What indigo have done, indigo have been the deconstructor and the ones that actually destabilize the older systems that were created in inverted matrix, 3D, 2D, Satan operating system, and the Lucifer operating system, I guess, and the software of the ego, that will destabilize that. But it's not only just this, it's all the construct, all the systems that are based on that currently still exist, that are being stabilized. So that's their role. Then you had the rainbow kids that will carry different spectrums of light, which will create a broader expanded version. And then you have the crystalline kids that have come in that actually emanate the organic blueprint and the organic matrix and are tuned for that. And they're the rebuilders that rebuild that with those higher consciousness. And the souls that are coming in that are tuned. So these new combinations that are coming in, so you're looking at a physicality that's coming in the most advanced level of Gaia's frequency. Human entities that have gone, that can be in between with whatever it is, and then the more advanced souls will be the accentuation of the different parts. Now, there's so much more soul swapping going on, the drop-ins and things of that nature, because certain souls do not want to incarnate and carry on. They're only coming in to contribute. So some souls will contribute and leave, and other souls will come in. And those other souls that come in will just take part of where it's gone and bring in more. And there's so much exchanging around that. Go ahead.
Just someone wants you to clarify. Souls born before 1987, do they still carry imprints, did you say, or they don't?
No, since, okay, so since 87, a lot of the polarity requirement was not being accentuated any longer. The karma operating system that was innate with the souls were deactivated. The software that was carried over of what they call the Satan code, or the self-destruct code, was not brought in either. So those were carryovers from reincarnation parts. Those carryovers were gone. So that started in 87. In 2012, we went through the whole idea of shutting down a lot of it. So the need for polarity from a soul perspective was gone. So anybody born 87 on never had the self-destruct code. That had to be really stimulated and activated from a mind perspective through the ego and all that other stuff coming in. The need for polarity and what we call karma were no longer in effect. And the fact that we had to adhere to characteristics and roles that we have taken on, so that they would be able to move a lot freer. And also the stepping in and stepping out of souls were kind of the restrictions of how long they would have to stay was removed. So in fact, if the soul wanted to leave, they would have to unplug the body, but it became free so that they didn't have to unplug the body, that another soul could step in and replace it and move on from it. So those are all the changes that happened in 87. And then in 2012, the next stage came in, where now the souls that were coming in were more organic 3D and more advanced, and there were also the energies were supportive of that. And now in 2020, of course, now we're in a completely different scenario. So those are all the different stages of changes that occurred. And I'm going to talk about the karma part, and I'm going to talk about this operating system really at that point in time was what it did is actually self-destruct, to the point of such polarization, such disconnect, to the point from a mind perspective, even though all the rest of it was still operating, didn't have the same impact. Let's put it this way. So it would be able to go into that deep stage of it, where it was no longer a necessity at this point. So a lot of that stuff was removed. Any soul that has come in prior to 87 were assisted to purge a lot of that. The other thing is that since 87, the Schumann resonance of the planet has been increasing. The spectrum of light and the frequency of the sun has been increasing. From 2012 on, it's been increasing more exponentially than ever. And now it's like off the freaking charts sort of thing, because it's taking pulses that are amazing. And anybody who's following that can see how it goes into that really super bright, intense frequencies that are bursts that we have. And the bursts are becoming widespread and even accentuated. Even though we had bursts before, they were less in duration and in frequency. Now it's much more frequent and much more expanded directions. So all of these have come into place. And then, we can talk about all this soul swapping and all of that stuff. Was there something else you wanted to add around that, or that needed more clarification?
No, I just wanted to maybe just clarify through my words.
Yes.
This last question, because it's come up before.
Okay.
So what you're saying is the souls knew they were coming and they were going to play that role, a victim role. Mm-hmm. But because of the way things are now, they do not carry the trauma the same as if it had been done before, correct? So
Yes.
the trauma is being cleared from the entities and the physical body through the whole process of dying.
Yes.
And
Yes.
whatever. And they're also playing the role for, because she was talking about it, because it de-evolved us to a degree.
Yes, it did. It did.
And so that was needed in order for us to really get a feel for what we need to empower ourselves, like to bring back our own power. Mm-hmm. So it had to get to that degree of polarity in order for us to, get fed up and make a change.
Yes. Well, the thing is, I want to clarify. It didn't have to be that way, but it was an experiment and agreement to try that out in that way. Okay. So we set up the stage that it was a requirement, like you said. It had to be, only because the stage was set up that way, so that we can actually experience that polarity. And that was the luring part, the exciting part for any soul wanting to come here, is because that level of disconnect and polarity was not really readily available anywhere else within the galaxy. So the souls that are playing in this galaxy and in that part of the universe is saying, well, you know something? There's something being offered there. There's an opportunity there I can't get really anywhere else. So I really want to be part of that and see what that's like, because, I can advance for myself as an individual signature, advance all the other sections that I've talked about, and also the collective as one being source itself.
So that was the big gain. That was the
Yes.
why, because there had to be something really amazing to gain from this experience. So that was the gain, that huge polarity. And I'm just going through the question. So in trying to come to terms around, I think on a physical, on a human level, because it seems so disconnected.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to wrap our heads around why that would happen, but it is happening. There is a reason behind it, and it. So can you just maybe clarify a bit on a human level for us? We have to understand that it happened for a reason for us to move beyond that, and so we could evolve in even a bigger way.
Yeah, exactly. And you pretty well made the point there. So, taking on an ego and taking on that particular operating system and so forth, with the different levels and labels and definitions and so forth and all of that. So as long as you're still very governed by this, which most of us are to one degree or another, some less than others, it's going to make it very skewed to the point where it's going to not make any sense. But as long as you start unplugging this, as you become more and more aware of this operating system and it becomes unplugged, there's a whole different level of clarity you end up accessing, and you can see things as not only the game, as the opportunity, as the freedom of being able to have an experience that was not that easily to be created anywhere else. I want to clarify one last thing around that, is because one of the questions that comes in, there's so much stuff that has come up, and this has been going on for a long time. You're talking thousands of years, okay? We're not even talking about just now. We're talking thousands of years. The slavery, the torture, the using of sacrificing, sacrificing other humans, doing all these so-called despicable, using children, using women in ways and whatever else, that was very deploring in a way, if you look at it from a mind perspective. That's been going on a long time, and it was, again, part of the Lucifer operating system to be able to sustain itself and also to create such a disconnect. But when it comes to the souls, when it comes to the human entity, when it comes to the bodies, in its innate operating system, minus this, it agrees to take it on for various purposes. It's for extreme polarity, advancing the human body, advancing the human entity, and advancing the soul. And you say, well, how could that be when you're talking about such of that? Because it looks at the bigger picture. If we can accentuate it, can we have it, whatever it is. So as much as this will define it being traumatic, destructive, deplorable, evil, or whatever it may be, okay, from all of those in its pure sense as source, because the body is still a source, the human entity is source, soul is source, the field around you is source, but within that operating system, it creates that it's something that can be negative in one way or another and can be horrible. So once you start unplugging that more and more, and you get into that connective state, you could see it more as the game, but you don't see it and judge it in the same way. However, that doesn't mean that you don't say, okay, we're done with this and we can move it on and move out of that experience rather than still giving it power as we've given it before. So it's just, you get into a deeper realization of what's going on. So with all of the bodies that are taking form, and the human entities taking form, and the souls taking form, they're coming in with the very powerful intent to accentuate and advance the whole human experience forward into its organic matrix, in the organic 3D, 4D, 5D, or in this case 3D, 5D, and then beyond. It's not using the 4D per se as a stopping point in any way. It ends up being a transitional part, but it's not actually, there's no platform been created for 4D. So in essence, there's a platform for organic 3D and organic 5D, and the 4D is just a level of consciousness that as you're doing the transitional part of it, but there's not a platform that actually supports it as something that, okay, we have to go through this playground and then the next playground and the next playground. And the same thing with organic 6D and organic 7D. Those platforms don't exist in the sense of that, but the consciousness of that you plug into your organic 5D or organic 3D, and then the platforms will actually upgrade, because the planet Gaia is actually supporting the capacity to be able to go all the way up to 12 per se. But that's, you know, not something we need to deal with anytime soon around that. So if we look at from this perspective, from the mind, it's going to be very difficult to wrap our mind. Why would a soul, a body, and a human entity want to take on such polarities, such torture and fear and whatever else? When you see it from a from a source perspective, it's just a game. Now, that does not mean that the game still has to exist in its form. It is in a position to purge all of that, because it no longer serves. And when I say no longer serves, we've already reached a certain level of saturation from a collective perspective that is no longer supported. Now, the completion that's occurring will only hold on to it to the degree for us to give ourselves the opportunity to become self-empowered rather than forced empowered. Even the assistance that we're getting from our brothers and sister souls in non-human form, and the assistance that we're getting energetically, it's not doing the empowerment for us. It's just stimulating us to become more self-empowered. It's really just assisting us. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
No, I think you pretty much covered it really well now.
I think we've covered enough for today.
Yes.
We will continue with the questions on Tuesday. We may handle it a little bit differently because of the fact that I'll be flying solo, and Kimberly will be somewhere else with monitoring the comments and may be able to share. So we're going to find a way that I can get the questions. I can have a monitor
I'll
showing
write
the
them out
questions.
for Franco, so he'll have to read them though as he goes along. That's all. And we won't be able to ask any of the questions on the chat. But if they come up and we can do it later, I'll copy and paste them onto our question list.
Okay. So we'll do it that way. So we'll see you Tuesday for the continuation of Q&A. We'll see you Saturday for the global meditation of love and oneness, advancing our dance of life. So choose to be participating. Share the links that we've provided on Facebook, and I think there's YouTube also shows it up as upcoming live. And so just stay tuned and join us. It's 2 p.m. Eastern Time this Saturday, and we'll also provide some music on the background of it, and we'll see how long it is. It's probably going to be a little shorter than the ones that I did before, or last Saturday actually. So yeah, we get to play with that, and until we connect again Saturday or Tuesday or beyond, go out and have a blast.